Welcome to GeeK KetchUp. I'm Kyle Eckert alongside Chris Heck. We're two lifelong friends with a passion for all things geek. Whether it's gaming, movies, television, wrestling, comics, whatever. If it's nerdy, there's a good chance we're into it. You are listening to Chapter 11 of Season 1. Today we're talking about a video game that's been getting a lot of our playtime as of late, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3: The Black Order. A game that, for the most part, came out of nowhere for us. We'll talk about our favorite aspects of the Switch exclusive, including modes, levels, characters, and more. Also, like so many others right now, Chris and I find ourselves spending a lot more time inside, so we'll give you some insight on what we've been up to lately. Before we get started here, Chris and I wanted to take a moment to say thank you for listening to this chapter, and thank you to everyone that's been listening since we started the show. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and we appreciate you choosing to spend time with us. Hopefully everyone is staying safe and healthy, and we also hope that in this short time you are hanging out with us, it's a nice break from the high stress we are all experiencing. Usually this is the part where we ask you to spread the word about GeeK KetchUp on social media and to stay saucy, but instead I'll ask that you spread the word on using common sense, smart social distancing, and to quote Braun Strowman, remember to wash those hands. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3: The Black Order is the latest entry in the iconic action RPG hack-and-slash Ultimate Alliance series. Developed by Team Ninja, the game was released on July 19th, 2019 as a Nintendo Switch exclusive. Published by Nintendo themselves, this is in fact the first game in the Ultimate Alliance series not to be published by Activision, and also serves as the first Marvel game ever published by Nintendo. Utilizing a similar formula as the previous two games, players can play solo or multiplayer, picking teams of 4 from a roster of heroes and villains to battle through stages and enemies found in the Marvel Universe, earning various buffs and perks along the way. Played from a top-down viewpoint, game modes include a 20-hour interconnected story that ties in different Marvel factions and groups, Infinity Rifts, which are individual challenges that have been pulled from slices of the story itself, a gauntlet mode that runs player through a series of Infinity Rifts, and the Danger Room, which is a PvP area that allows players to compete in timed gauntlet runs. All of these modes, of course, coming with multiple difficulty levels. As for the characters themselves, each one has the standard light and heavy attack, dodge, and block. They also have 4 ability moves each, and supercharged extreme attacks. As I said, this game blindsided us a little bit when we first picked it up. It was not a release day purchase, so we were a little late to the party, but I'll tell you, once we bought it and got going, we could not put it down.
Yeah, so honestly, first off, I have to say I'm really glad that you went ahead and pulled the trigger on this game because, I've had a Switch since day one when they launched, played a number of games, and Marvel Ultimate Alliance was definitely one that was up there as far as interest levels, but at the time, last July, I was one of the only people that really had a Switch. I mean, a couple here and there, but you didn't have one yet. I was kind of looking at probably not having anybody to play with, $60 price tag on a game that you never quite know. I mean, the old ones were good, right? But you never quite know exactly what's going to be in it because it had been a while since the Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 had come out.
Yeah, 2 had come out a long time ago, I think in 2009. It went through a series of reboots and remasters, and none of them were very solid. So it made you iffy on the production company or the developers being able to put out a quality game.
Right, right. So I kind of took the approach of I'll wait, maybe catch it on sale, whatever it may be down the line, and then Christmas 2019, you get the awesome gift, you get the Switch finally. You've been tearing it up ever since, hitting a bunch of different games. We've been checking out a couple other things like Tetris 99, etc. And then you pulled the trigger here, and that was pretty much the end, right? I grabbed it, Alex grabbed it, Mike grabbed it. Now we've got a whole squad playing.
Yeah, the full Lotus, it bloomed completely and everyone scooped this game. But you're right, like, it's a Marvel game, so you're always going to keep your eye on it, just being a Marvel fan and a comic book fan. The roster of heroes is amazing. So it's something you want to keep your eye on, but maybe not pull the trigger on release day. But I knew that when I got a Switch, that it was going to be a game that I targeted. It was actually almost a game that caused me to break down and buy a Switch. I stayed strong and didn't, ended up getting one as a gift, which was pretty awesome. But as soon as I got that Switch, I knew that I was going to get Marvel at some point. And I'm so glad that I did because it brought back all of the memories from playing Marvel, the first one and the second one, the Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2, and the couch co-op. It brought me back to my college days where that was how you'd spend Saturday afternoons or, even Sunday afternoons sitting on the couch, teaming up with your roommates or your best buds, doing a little couch co-op and playing through the stories.
Yeah, well, this has been great because it comes now. It has online modes. You can team up at a distance. You can still team up on the couch locally. You obviously can take the game mobile with the benefits of being a handheld on the Switch, and all of it's worked great. Looking back on it now, I mean, it's very clear that definitely could have picked it up on launch day and would have been completely happy with it. There's a ton of content in this game. Almost kind of blew us away when we started opening up
Yeah.
and realizing the layers upon layers of content in this game, whether it's modes, whether it's the different ways that you can power up your team, the different difficulty levels. I mean, it just kept going deeper and deeper. And one benefit that we had was getting the game, what was it, like January of this year, just a couple months back.
Yeah, just 3 months ago or so, yeah.
Yeah, so there was already 2 DLC packages out. So on top of how much content there is in the base game of this, we had also gotten the additional DLC packages with came with new modes and new characters. So we were a little bit overwhelmed at first.
Yeah, for sure. I think the second DLC, Rise of the Phoenix, which gave it the X-Men expansion, came out in December. So right when we hit, it already had a ton of content between the the Rise of the Vampire, Curse of the Vampire, excuse me, expansion, Rise of the Phoenix expansion, which, as Chris said, gave us 8 more players on a roster that was already stacked.
Yep.
The roster was already in the high 30s, and then when you added 8 more between those 2 DLCs, and then Nightmare mode, Gauntlet mode, and Danger Room mode all coming with those as well. It was a little overwhelming, and just when we finished the first story playthrough, it was like, okay, well, what's on next? And there was another level. Then we beat that level, and then there was another difficulty level. So you're right, it was just peeling back the onion of this game with so many perks and buffs and areas to unlock and things to get between skins and voice lines and ISOs, which are what they call the perks and the buffs for your strength and your durability and things like that throughout the game. But then also the hexagon and the alliance enhancement area that it's called in the game, where it gives you just overall buffs to your profile. It's deep. There's so much going on.
Oh yeah. And I know we just threw a ton at everybody right there and kind of bounced around a little bit, but we're definitely going to dig into a few of these items a little bit more. But the real main takeaway there is just simply how much this game has. And in a dungeon crawler type game where you do have a large roster, you're building characters, the whole idea is replayability. That is what you want. You want tons of different game modes that you can spend your time in individually, or you can bounce around and keep it fresh, keep it new, keep making it more difficult as you increase your character levels. But why don't we start really with kind of the core of what this game is, or what it's centered around, which is the story mode, before we get too far into anything else. So as you mentioned earlier, the story mode was about 20 hours long.
Yeah.
It was pretty well made, but I would say, if one of the few knocks I really had on Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 was that the story was kind of generic.
Yeah.
Right? It came out shortly after Avengers Endgame. It has Thanos as the big bad. Got a very expected, predictable Marvel story that kind of is it's not exactly what you see in the movie, but it might as well be, because it's kind of the same concept.
Yeah, they debuted the Black Order, so they played off Thanos collecting the Infinity Stones and using the Black Order as his minions to go around and collect them. And then, just like you see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you saw the Avengers and the Guardians and the Defenders and Spider-Man and the Champions all come together. One thing we got in this game that we didn't get in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was the X-Men.
Yep.
Which I think was a huge highlight for us, that it also included the X-Men and eventually the Fantastic Four as well. So With a roster this big and so many players, you kind of expect it to be a little plain Jane story wise because there's so many people to fit in. They couldn't really dive deep into any one section.
That's totally fair, and what I did like was that the story keeps moving. It's very action packed. You know, you do get some good cinematics. Like it was entertaining to go through the first time. You know, albeit just a little generic. Probably the best part for me going through it though was just the fact that you had constant boss fights.
Yeah.
You know, you had a lot of good action with kind of the minions, right? I mean, it felt like almost every, I don't know, 10 minutes as you play this game, you were coming up against another classic Marvel boss,
Yeah.
or Marvel Big Bad is what I'm looking for, right? And unfortunately, not all of those are playable characters, but getting to see Dormammu, Ultimo, Kingpin, Bullseye, who we all hate, you know, but
Yeah.
they really went through and just picked out all of the best villains, and then you know you have to fight through pretty much every one of them
Oh yeah.
before you get to the Black Order and Thanos.
You really do, and that's pretty cool. Yeah, we saw from Spider-Man up front, you got Sandman and Green Goblin. They did a nice little twist, I thought, with each of the major heroes. So in the Spider-Man section, that I'll call it, Green Goblin is running around causing a nuisance, and then later when you go to Avengers Tower, Ultron is creating a nuisance. What I did like about the final boss battle is to tweak them a little bit. They gave those characters an Infinity Stone to work with.
Yeah, it gave them new powers, kind of freshened up, made them more of a threat and a little bit less familiar.
Yeah, exactly. I think of Green Goblin having the Time Stone. So being able to like throw a goblin bomb and then freeze and move to a different area to kind of cause the whole team to pivot. It made for an interesting battle and an interesting time
Yep.
for each one, kind of give you like a spice it up just a little bit.
Now, one thing I did think, and I kind of go back and forth, right? And I see with a big roster, I know why they didn't put in a mechanic like this, but with how many great characters there are, I would have liked to see a little bit more necessity or value to certain characters in certain levels. You know, they have that theme where, you know, you're in Avengers Tower, you're at the raft, that kind of silo out to different heroes and villains.
Sure.
But if you're at Avengers Tower, there's no benefit to being Tony Stark or not. You know, there's no benefit to
Oh.
being an Avenger or not. You pretty much can play through it regardless. And I thought that that could have been a little interesting twist because the game does allow you to regularly change your team as you're moving. You could have a different team for every boss you fight,
Yeah.
but there's never really anything that's like, hey, being this guy or being this girl would be a better situation for you because of where you're at and the situations they put you in.
That would have been a pretty cool experience that, say, if you're in Avengers Tower and you use the actual Avengers or the core four Avengers, that you get an extra perk or an extra boost that helps you throughout the level. Or maybe, I think of like Lego games where you have to use certain characters to
Exactly.
unlock an area, which then may give you, it could just be a chest,
Right.
like a small reward, but it is like one specific area that you need a character for. That would have been a pretty cool little boost, and a lot of replayability
Yeah.
comes to mind.
That's a perfect comparison. The Lego games hadn't come to mind when I was thinking about this, but now that you say that, that's exactly what I was envisioning. Looking kind of putting two and two together, right? But I just think it would have given it that extra layer of depth, just a little bit more something to consider as you're moving through these versus kind of what we did, which was pick your favorite heroes and build that team and then start to dominate. But all in all, you know, 15 to 20 hours here on the campaign. I think the official time is around 20 hours. What we found, though, that was nice was that you can skip all the cutscenes. So once we got through the first run, it allowed us to pretty much start speed running the game. And I think they cut down a lot of the time. I mean, we've had a few play sessions where we've gone through probably close to half of the whole story campaign in just an afternoon
Oh yeah.
to get through a new difficulty or to get more XP, whatever it may be. So all in all, definitely tons of replayability there. Not too much to gripe about other than the generic story.
No, I'd agree. It's fun. It'll keep you moving. The dialogue is goofy. You can see that maybe some of the story is meant for kids,
Sure.
which is why it's so generic and so goofy. I think of Rocket saying "flarkin" all the time. Just to get a giggle, get a quick pop out of somebody playing it. But it is deeper, and there are other modes that you can go into, so it doesn't wear too thin on you.
Yeah.
Like it's fun to watch a cutscene every now and then, but for the most part, we are skipping them at the end.
Now, one story mode that we haven't really run through yet, I did a little bit of it, but I know I haven't beaten it, is with the first DLC package, Curse of the Vampire, they came out with what they call Nightmare Mode, which is essentially the whole campaign yet again, but they've got these different modifiers on it. With the vampire, like vampirism is one of the main modifiers in that section of DLC, so people can leech your health. And then you've got some of the danger room type things that come in where you've got lasers that'll hit you and giant stomping arms that kind of come out of nowhere. So they really just kind of revamped it in a way that makes it harder, fresher, gives you another reason to play through it.
Yeah, it keeps you rolling. They also added the respawn, so like there are ads everywhere that you can kill, but if you don't kill the main baddie, then the ads are just going to keep respawning themselves. That was a nice little twist. All based around that Curse of the Vampire Morbius pack.
Agreed. I will say though, what I found myself really enjoying the most, probably my favorite part of this game so far, was the Infinity Rifts, which you start to unlock as you move through the game, as you start to beat more and more of the campaign, and what those are essentially is, I don't know, probably close to 50 different challenges, replayable challenges that have a variety of modifiers. They increase in difficulty pretty much all the way up the line.
Oh, yeah.
And they have different challenges within each challenge.
Yeah.
3 to 4 challenges within each one that you have to do and meet to get stars, which ultimately ends up giving you more skins, gives you more characters, gives you more XP cubes. So it's just another way to earn a lot of those rewards in kind of a targeted fashion.
I agree. I enjoy the Infinity Rifts, and like I said, we said in the intro, they take a little slice of the story. So they'll take the Sandman boss battle, and then they'll double down and boost on it and say, okay, during this Sandman boss battle, your regular light and heavy attacks don't do as much damage, but your special abilities do boosted damage. And so it puts little twists on it, and you really got to pay attention because we've gone through a few. We're like, man, we're not doing any damage to this guy. And it's because we were doing the wrong type of attack. Or, the other boosts where your health is constantly depleting. So, but you have to do physical attacks to regenerate your health. Little things like that. It makes for, once again, replayability and to roll through and to put little twists and spins on the story mode in itself.
Yeah. Well, and you touched on it there, so we should probably give it a little bit of time is the combat. So, of course, every character has their basic attacks, light and heavy. But then on top of that, you get access to 4 special attacks that you can do either individually as just your character or what they call a synergy attack, where essentially 2 characters will complement each other with their abilities to create a stronger super attack. So obviously kind of the easiest one to probably give everybody out there to envision is the Iron Man unibeam off of Captain America's shield. And you can do that, and then they'll be spinning it around, and you can either concentrate it on one off boss, or you can move it left and right to attack a field of enemies. So pretty much if you think about the whole gamut of the characters that are in this game, there's unlimited almost number of combinations.
Yeah,
of
the
attacks
combinations between the characters is endless on the different basically anyone that has a projectile attack, it can be deflected off anyone that has a shield style attack. So you think of Captain America with Iron Man, Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, anyone that can throw something, he can deflect it, which makes for a really cool little animation in the game. That's actually one of my favorite parts of the game is the synergy animations.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you get things going and you have, 15, 20 plus people on the map that you're fighting, and you've got your team of 4, and it gets pretty chaotic. There's a lot of animations going on. There's a lot of destruction, tornadoes, lasers,
flames, ice.
Yeah.
Full on anarchy. It's Ragnarok.
It's true. It's true. Sometimes like we get going and it's like you almost have to like look away from the screen for a minute because there's just so much visually going on. You think you're at like a rave, something like that. Just all the visuals. Kind of the one thing I think I would have to say though, one of those just slight little knocks though, is that when it comes to the attacks, and we see it a little bit with really more the characters, is that anything that's kind of a similar character type or similar attack, it really feels and operates
Oh yeah, the exact same.
the exact same between characters. So what comes to mind is the heavies, Hawk, Thing, Colossus. They've all got a ground pound. They've all got a shoulder charge. They've all got a yell boost. So they play very similar. At that point, I felt like that was one downfall, right? Because you kind of end up just picking the characters you like the most from a visual standpoint.
Yeah.
Colossus is my favorite out of those heavies. So like I play Colossus with a heavy, and it kind of goes down the line with the elementals and the hand to hand combat guys. So to me, that was a little bit of a takeaway. But what did you think?
I actually kind of enjoyed that a little bit because I thought while all of them have a ground pound and a heavy attack like that, they at least tried in some cases to do it differently. So what I mean is like the Hawk, when he does his jump high and pound the ground, he does like a shoulder charge back into the ground and he creates like a rock formation under him and it blows up the ground versus Colossus jumps in the air and does like a giant belly flop.
That's true. They do look different. The animations are different. I guess just I was more about like the gameplay style or feel of them.
Oh, yeah, that I'd have to agree on that a heavy is a heavy. There's no real, you're not getting a unique difference between Hawk or Colossus or even Thanos to some extent. Like, they're all just, you need one big character. Well, you can roll the wheel or roll the dice, pick any big character you want, and they're going to fit on your team of four.
Yeah, but I will say, just to make sure nobody gets the wrong impression, is they didn't skimp or get lazy as far as the animations go. I mean, everybody does look unique. They look true to the character. They feel genuine. They sound genuine, to what you would expect out of those comic characters. So they did a good job from that standpoint. I just don't find myself swapping between the character types too much. Like I said, like Colossus is my heavy, and if I'm gonna use a character like that, like he's the guy I'm going to versus a Hawk, like I just didn't have that pool to put other people in unless I just want to say, hey, I'm playing with the Hawk.
Yeah, I didn't really either. There was a couple places where I purposefully leveled someone up, and when I did it, it was because they had a solo mission in the Infinity Rifts area. So, like, I think the Hulk actually does have one. I leveled him up to a certain extent because I wanted to do the solo mission, but once I finished once I got him to a level high enough to complete the solo mission, I went right back to using Rocket and Groot.
Right. And I did some of that too, because you would get, like, I think for Hawk, it was another skin. You got Gray Hawk, and they did a good job with giving everybody, for how many characters are, I think pretty much every character, with the exception of maybe a handful, has separate skins or secondary skins. Some even have two or three, right?
Oh yeah, from what I've put together after this recent round of DLC, I believe when it's all said and done, every character will have at least four skins.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they'll have a default skin, a alternate default, and then something that's been specialized for the X-Men. We're looking at like Age of Apocalypse, Avengers Tower. I think the the Annihilation storyline. You got certain skins out of that. House of M had a few storylines looking back at the X-Men, and so you once again you have a default, an alternate default, an alternate universe, and then an alternate universe skin. So I think in the end, everyone will have at least four.
Maybe I was a little low on the estimate simply because I sadly have probably the only major, well, I don't even know if I can call it a major bug. It just seems to be bug. The only real bug that I've seen is that there are a list of skins that are in the
Yeah.
game that Kyle has access to, but I do not for whatever reason. So there's a depot that you can earn credits for and go in and buy extra skins, extra ISOs, extra voice lines. And for whatever reason,
Yeah.
Kyle has the skins listed there as options to buy, and I still do not. I thought that the latest DLC that came out this week with that update was going to resolve that for me, but no, I ended up with some of the new skins,
Yeah.
not all of them either, and then still didn't get the old skins that were already out there. So that's probably my number one point of contention with this game is I just can't get all these sweet skins.
Yeah, and I'm running around as classic X or classic Cyclops and just making Chris jealous.
I know, super jealous. But while we're on the topic of characters, let's talk a little bit about, which ones have been our favorites so far and, which ones remaining. You get that team of 4. So why don't you kick us off here, Kyle, and kind of take us into that? What have been your favorite characters so far in the game?
So my core 4, which have been my favorite, has been Cyclops, Storm, Cable, and Rocket and Groot. But then once I unlock Thanos, I immediately put Thanos on my team.
You have to.
And then I have to. And then I also say, with this latest DLC, which introduced the Fantastic Four, I brought Human Torch onto my team. And I did that because Human Torch was my main when I played Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2. So getting him, as soon as he debuted, I was like, this is who I want to be. I think when you and I were playing it, it was like, obviously we got all 4 Fantastic Four members at once, and you're like, who do you want? And I was like, I'm Human Torch. Like, there's no question. It took me a millisecond to answer that. I want Human Torch.
You did.
So that's been my core 4. Like I said, Cyclops, Storm, Cable, Thanos. Of those 4, my main one, my number 1 character is Cable. I love his ability to call down a gun. He essentially calls down an extra gun to fire while he can shoot in another direction. I think he's got some really cool, unique blocks and shields that he can deploy, and then a nice little gravity bomb that he can place that sucks enemies into it. But the bigger thing for me with Cable, and then a lot of my main characters here, I like the characters that you don't get to play with all that often. Like, how many video games is Cable really in?
It's true. There's definitely a good list of characters that rarely make it into video games, and it takes something like this where there is a big roster and they're trying to be encompassing to get them in. Cable's one, Gambit, we mentioned Colossus. I mean, I know those are all X-Men. It feels like maybe there's a lot of
Yeah.
the X-Men get left out, recently, but Ghost Rider, Blade,
Moon Knight.
Almost half the roster is probably characters that fall into that category.
Even the Defenders to some extent, like Elektra, Daredevil, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage. Like, while they're staples in the Marvel universe, they're not. You don't see them in video games very often.
We had a couple crossovers on the main 4. Originally it was Colossus, Cyclops, Magneto, and Gambit. And then, of course, when we got Thanos, I'm a huge Thanos guy, so I immediately had to add him in. So he took Colossus's spot as my heavy. But, now that we've gotten the newest DLC with the Fantastic Four, Cyclops kind of got the bump, and I threw in Doctor Doom because Doctor Doom's obviously one of my top guys too. So I'm rocking almost the full villain team. So I've got Thanos, Doom, Magneto, but I still got Gambit on there just because he is my highest level character.
You're doing your best effort to make a Thunderbolts team. Yeah, those villains trying to do good, right?
Yeah, but I have to say I was really impressed with the Fantastic Four cast of characters that we got, and we talked about it a little bit the other day. Neither of us are big Fantastic Four guys. They're a lower on the list of heroes that we prefer. And then they gave us this team, and really all of them were built pretty well. The Thing had great animations, even though he was probably the most generic. Sue Richards had some really awesome support abilities, maybe more than we've seen in any character, with putting up full shield bubbles and the invisible barrier wall that can defend you from the enemies while you still fire through it. But I think kind of who won the day for me, and I haven't been Human Torch yet since you were Human Torch, but what really stole it for me was Reed Richards.
Oh, yeah.
He was so funny, and the way they built him is so whimsical with all of his stretching and his ability to contort his body into all different objects and different things, like going from the giant bouncy ball that you can do and just like hop around hitting everything to the flying squirrel as you're jumping and double jumping. I don't know. I just thought that they did a really good job with him, and he seemed very effective, so I'm kind of on the ropes, man. Like, I'm like, do I get Reed Richards in here? Like, do I swap him out for Gambit? I don't know. Tough calls are going to be made in the next couple play sessions.
That is a tough call. But that's how Mr. Fantastic always fits in. Like, he just kind of seems lame, but then you're like, oh, there's actually a lot he can do with this very unique ability and kind of put himself all over the place. But At first, you're gonna think, "Oh my God, it's what can a guy that is really stretchy? What can Stretch Armstrong do for me in a
Right.
battle against Thanos?" And they're like, "Oh no, he can actually make this pretty goofy and comic booky and kind of fun."
Mm-hmm.
I'll be surprised if he replaces Gambit of all people on your team. Like, come on now, Gambit?
It is true. Gambit's too good in this game. It'll probably end up being Magneto as much as I love Magneto. But I guess I got to reserve a little bit on Doctor Doom because I only scratched the surface with him right after we got him. I haven't given him the full run, so maybe the jury's out a little bit. But all in all, it's been a ton of fun with this game being able to bounce around. I think I've played with pretty much the whole roster, but some of the other standouts for me that I like to pop in there: Thor, Blade, Ghost Rider, Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, Wolverine, Black Panther. Those are just some that come to mind. I know there's been a bunch others, but do you have any other standouts that maybe aren't on your main team, but that you've enjoyed playing with?
Obviously, I like the core Avengers. Captain America, Iron Man was pretty cool. Hulk, Thor, of course. Iron Fist is a big one for me. Really liked Iron Fist. Rocket and Groot, as I said. Star Lord has been one that I've really wanted to kind of level up and get him more involved with my team because he's got those elemental guns, which kind of gives him some diversity as far as the different types of attacks. Spider Gwen, of all people, I've used her more than I thought I would because I'm not the biggest Spider Man fan, and Venom is there, and so is Miles Morales. So I'm like, oh, if I'm going to go with a spider based team, you would think I'd use one of those three, but it's actually Spider Gwen has been my standout. She's got a lot of really cool area attacks where she whips around and kind of spins like a swing, and then she's got another one. She makes a big web ball and spins it around. So it's any of the characters, a lot of different things that I see like similarities from character to character that I like. It's the ones that have the area of attack damage.
It comes down, it helps a lot. And I don't use a lot of them personally. So I think when you've been able to bring those to the team, that's definitely helped. And Human Torch had a bunch of them,
Yeah, I was gonna
which
say
really
Human
helped.
Torch. Human Torch had so many really good ones between causing a flame circle on the screen or jumping up in the air and spiking back down. It also helps, as you would expect with Human Torch, that all of his attacks do burn damage
True.
after they're over. So that ends up being a pretty nice boost to the team itself.
And they did a really good job animating him. I really thought that he might be one of the best looking characters that we've gotten so far. I mean, the full body flames,
Yeah.
the graphics look good, it renders well. And then when he's throwing the items down on the floor and like turning the entire floor into an inferno, it just has a good look and it works well. Because having those live effects on a character, I think there's only a few characters on the entire roster that get that. Ghost Rider has the flaming skull, which looks good, but it's kind of just a small part of the character, whereas Human Torch is head to toe.
Yeah, it's overall. Well, it's kind of like what we wanted for Iceman.
True.
What we wanted for Iceman was the version where he's completely covered in ice and spiky and has that armor on. But we got the original X-Men version where he's kind of in like a onesie.
Yeah, the leotard.
His legs and his arms are still exposed, and obviously he has an ice head and everything. But yeah, he's wearing that like leotard onesie look. For me, it made me not want to use Iceman. It's like, oh, for a character I like as much as I do, I
That's
like
true.
love Iceman, but he just kind of looks lame, and
Mm-hmm.
he was a little clunky. His combat was a little clunky for me.
That's true. I felt the same way about Iceman. Can't have him in there with the poor look. But, you mentioned clunky, and that is a good word because there are a few characters that have kind of fallen into that category for me as well. That, you go in, you want to play with them, you want to like them, but just the cadence, of moving through the attacks or the combination of the regular light heavy attack and the ability attacks just don't seem to flow well together. And I thought that he fit in there. I thought that Venom fit in there. Like I
Oh
really
yeah,
did not like Venom's abilities at all, and it kept me from playing with him, even though Venom's an awesome character in general. So not all characters were built the same in this from that standpoint.
no, and you can reorder. I'll say like I had that problem with Storm when I first started playing with her, but what I did was I reordered the controls. So her abilities, I put them on different shortcut keys.
Yeah, you reassigned
I
them.
reassigned them. Yeah, thank you, and that really helped. But there are some other characters. Moon Knight was one that fell into that category for me, where I want to like them so badly, but for whatever reason, my play style doesn't fit that character.
Yeah. Well, and I think that getting very used to other characters that just kind of play like butter, they're just
Yeah.
super smooth and you can just wreck everything, then trying to switch over to a character that you're not as familiar with that has more of that clunky setup or slower style, it kind of just impacts it because once you get going in this game, you just want to dominate everything.
Oh yeah, you just want to do as many attacks as you can and just basically try to get the screen to lag out.
Yeah, well, there's always something fun about going up against, a really big bad like a Doctor Doom or a MODOK or a Thanos, and like just liquefying them pretty much. You see how fast you can beat them after the match starts. Essentially, the fight starts, and there's been times where we've gone in and it's like an
Yeah, just
instant.
done. Instantly done. There's a synergy attack between Thanos and Cyclops that we both really utilized, where they both have beam attacks. Obviously, Cyclops in his, mutation, he shoots the beams from his eyes, but then Thanos also has a beam that he shoots from his hand. And if you synergize those together, you can just melt bosses.
Oh yeah. Well, let's touch on a few other things here, Kyle, as we start to wrap it up. I feel like we could talk on this game for hours and hours, just with how much is out there. But you'll have to go out and check it out for yourself and fill in the holes. Some of the other modes that kind of stood out here was the gauntlets that came in with the first DLC package. They were similar to the Infinity Rift style, where they're replayable. There's a lot of different modifiers and difficulty levels associated with each individual gauntlet. But the thing that kind of set them apart was that instead of just a one-off, one mission, one instance with the Infinity Rifts, the gauntlets kind of tied 2, 3, 4, 5 of those together, and you continuously play through them on like essentially like an endless survival.
Right.
And every time you go through that set number of instances, the difficulty gets higher, which means then the XP gets higher. So, what have your thoughts been on the gauntlet mode?
I like the gauntlet modes. They're a nice little twist, especially for long-term play. Like, because that's kind of how when you approach it, or at least how I've approached it when I sit down to play this game. It's do I want to run through the story, or am I on short time and I only want to do an Infinity Rift or two? But the gauntlets have been that nice in between,
Yeah, that's a good
and
way to put it.
especially for us, where it's I don't want to run through the story, but I do want to like rack up some quick XP, and the gauntlets have come in. They're pretty nice for that because, like you said, they give you those infinity rifts, boom, 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 right after each other, and then once you start looping them, you get into this thing where you want to see how high you can take your win count,
Yep.
which is just natural competitiveness, for anyone. But I've really enjoyed them, and they were nice for leveling up in the beginning stages. I think of that very first level 5 Curse of the Vampire Gauntlet that you could just run into endlessly. It was like kill 200 enemies, and then the next one was defeat Nebula, and then the next one was 40 powerful enemies, and then you just do it one right after another, and then they all increase in difficulty.
Yeah, they were all quick fights that you could easily get through. Definitely a pro tip there. If you pick up this game as a brand new player, as soon as you can, go to that Curse of the Vampire, go to that first level 5 gauntlet, and just run it, and you'll get significant XP. It was the best way to get character leveling quickly,
Yeah.
early on at least in the game.
Yeah, early on, before you start unlocking the later Infinity Rifts that give it to you, that is the best way to do it.
Yep. And we still have a bunch of gauntlets to finish. I mean, I know we've played through a number of them, probably half of them, but they really jump up in difficulty level. And one thing that we've found, not only now is the level cap in this game level 300 per character, but we found that on a lot of these challenges with the different modifiers they put on them, they may say, oh, this is a level 50, but we quickly realized that you pretty much had to be like a level 75 or a level 100 to truly do them without real difficulty. I mean, they would kick our butts up and down when we were trying them right when we would hit that level cap. It
Oh
was
yeah.
slightly under the level cap, or it definitely surprised me just because these games, you kind of go in waves, right, where it's like it's challenging, then everything feels real easy, and then it comes back to being challenging again. And it seemed like every time I got into that, oh, we've got this, we're starting to just wreck everything, we're good, it would hit us with some piece of content that was like, nope, you need to go and get significantly leveled up before you can tackle it.
Yeah, I think of the first time I had to do a Captain America solo mission. The recommended level, I believe, was 30, And so as soon as I hit 30 with Captain America, I gave it a shot. And it was like, nope, this isn't going to work. I'm going to need to be way higher than this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it almost checks you. You're like, wait, am I just not good at this game? And you're like, no, I got the game down. It's just you need to be prepared.
It is true. Now, one thing I will have to say here, because when especially with the gauntlets and the Infinity Rifts, probably my last kind of knock on this game was around the co-op. The way you have to set up lobbies in order to play with your friends.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit brutal in this game. Essentially, if you're in story mode, you can get into the lobby and you can play pretty much as long as you want, just running through story mode with no load times, etc. But if you are going through the infinities or the gauntlets, you have to essentially create a brand new lobby for every single instance. And that has been a little bit taxing because most of these instances are what? A couple minutes long.
3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them are on timers, or a lot of them you can get through pretty quickly. But, you end up spending 3 to 5 minutes at least just setting the lobby back up and then loading in and then loading the instance.
Yeah.
So that's probably been like one of the biggest gripes about the game. And Nintendo, probably some of it's just because Nintendo's got wonky multiplayer compared to the PS4 or Xbox experience. So some of it's probably chalked up to that. But for a game like this, it's been taxing as we've played through.
Yeah, it is a big knock. The few big knocks I have on here on my cons listed are it's all online partying and menu navigation. Really tough on the player. And then a lot of the quality of life management. So you get those perks and buffs. They're called ISOs. And the ISO management, they cap out. You're only allowed to have 1,000 on your storage.
It's
and
the worst.
once you get to about 950, the game actually won't let you start a new mode. You have to go in and clear out the ISOs. That has been really frustrating. And then you can't clear them out in anything higher than 10. So when you're trying to salvage all of your extra ISOs to create room so you can start the game, you have to delete them 10 at a time.
Yeah.
That is very cumbersome.
Well, it's super cumbersome because the game is extremely generous.
Yeah.
With how many ISOs you get. Like, you play through a little bit of story, you play through a couple Infinity Rifts, you're probably getting 25 ISO chunks. And they are somewhat valuable, and they come in different sizes with different levels, but they're essentially the buffs.
Yeah.
And you can customize them, you can choose them. There's a set for strength, a set for power, a set for health, a set for defense. They're all the things you can add to any character to just make them that much more unique and that much more into your specific play style. But right, when they give you that many and then they have a cap on how many you can hold, like, it's really become an end game nightmare.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought this up because I'm going to take back my statement about the online play being my biggest gripe, because the ISO management is absolutely the worst thing about this game. And I feel like we're kind of being a little nitpicky on some of these things because all in all, the game is pretty strong.
Yeah.
All in all, it's getting high marks from us in all the places that matter.
We should be clear. We've been playing this game for hours. So
Yeah.
we're not playing a game we don't like. Like,
Right.
we're enjoying all of the experience except for this one spot.
Right, but it has been annoying to be cruising along in a nice session and then it's just like error. You can't load up the next instance. You can't load up the next challenge because you've got too many ISOs, and then you've got to go in and delete them 10 at a time. So if they would have given us, like we were talking the other day, if they would have allowed us to choose as many as we want, or be able to maybe destroy them like 50 at a time, given how many we get, then it wouldn't really have been a thought. But that has been definitely taxing because there's nothing worse than when you want to go in, you want to pick the game back up, you want to get some rounds in before you got to go to dinner or something like that, and it's like, oh, you better go spend 20 minutes deleting ISOs before you can get into it.
I've always done them at the end of my play sessions, and it's typically taken me a half an hour every time at the end of my play sessions to clean them up. Of course, I go through the whole process of leveling things to make sure that I'm utilizing it. If I'm going to sit here and do the work, I might as well get some benefit out of it. But it has been very, very taxing.
I totally agree. Well, I think one of the last things I had here, Kyle, to touch on, and we kind of peppered it in earlier on as far as the Fantastic Four DLC, the most recent DLC. We talked about the characters that came out and how they've been playing. But what was cool with this DLC was instead of just getting external challenges, they chose to expand the story a little bit by giving us some new levels. So we got to
Right.
go and see Latveria and the Negative Zone, which also brought in new enemy types. So I thought that was a cool little addition since the other two were more focused on the gauntlets and the danger room.
No, I agree. I really liked it, especially the Doombot generators in the Latveria location. You get these machines that produce Doombots, and that made
Endlessly.
endlessly, which is really something that we were hoping for, like levels that produced more enemies for you to defeat.
Yeah,
Because that was one thing with the story. Every level produces the exact same enemies in the exact same rotation and the exact same rhythms. So I think for replayability of Latveria and the DLC, depending on how you approach these levels, you could end up getting more enemies and more XP eventually out of it.
that's true. Yeah, you can almost expand them if you wanted to just farm XP. You could probably just go in there and just kill them as they come out and never destroy the. I think it's kind of like a teleporter, right?
Yeah.
You know, it almost yeah, some sort of device that just allows them to keep endlessly spawning. And that's a good point. I know we hadn't really got into it so much to be able to manipulate it like that to our benefit, but that's a really good thought. I'm probably going to use that now in the future.
Yeah, and it's just another option for XP leveling because we've done the Infinity Rifts, we've done the Gauntlets, we've beaten the story probably 6+ times, just individually. So something that gives you another way to keep the game fresh and to not just be repeating the same grind over and over will be beneficial.
For sure. And I think all in all, the new story with the DLC lasted, what do you say, like 2 hours? We ran through it all together just the other day, and I'd say it was like 2.5 hours, somewhere
Yeah,
in there.
2.5 hours is fair for sure.
Yeah. So it was a good little add on for a DLC package, you know. Nothing life changing, but it gives you that little extra. It came with some different difficulties. And then you were actually telling me right before we jumped on here, because we had a mystery character slot that popped up. You know, there's 51 characters with the addition of the Fantastic Four, and we've got them all unlocked. But then we noticed there was one new square that was up at the top, and we weren't sure exactly where that was going to come from. But you had found out who that's going to be.
Yeah, I found out that that is going to spoiler if you play this game and you haven't unlocked this yet. Here's my spoiler who this is going to be. We found out that it's actually Thanos but with the Infinity Gauntlet on his hand.
Yeah, which should be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and they got rid of the ISO 8s, which are your perks and your buffs. They got rid of that slot for that specific character, and you use the Infinity Stones. So, which could make for some pretty cool synergies, I think, if they go full tilt with it.
Yeah, I'm super pumped about that because I know when we first got Thanos after beating the original game, and then I think you had to go get him from one of the Infinity Rifts. He was like a toned down version of what you
Yeah.
fight in the game. You know, he doesn't have the Infinity Gauntlet. He's got some great powers and he's extremely powerful, but he's also even like his rendering is a smaller version of Thanos.
Yeah, he's shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of hoping that when get him unlocked with the Infinity Gauntlet, that he is full tilt. He's that bigger version. He just like towers over everybody because I can't ever get enough Thanos. I am number one Thanos guy. So I mean, if I can put both Thanos,
I was
on
gonna
the
ask,
team-
do you think when you get Infinity Stone Thanos that you're just gonna roll double and you're gonna have Thanos and Thanos Jr.?
dude, double Thanos plus Doom, that could be legit. I don't know.
And then maybe one day Thane will come out because Thane is in the game, just not playable. And then you'll just have like
The Infinity Family.
The
You could
Infi-
throw Gamora
and
on
the
there.
Gamora, yeah, throw Gamora on there. Why not? That'd be a nice little character because you do get that. That's one thing that we didn't touch on with the characters is depending on how you mix and match your character teams, you get extra perks. So if you end up using those core 4 Avengers, you get a special perk for it, or if you use 2 of the 4 Fantastic Four, you get a little bit of a boost, or like X-Men or X-Force, or all new, all different superheroes, which is from one of Marvel's newer eras. So you get your younger heroes like Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen and Miss Marvel and things like that. So that would be really cool to see a Thanos family team.
Yeah, it definitely helps. It's another add-on to where you can really customize exactly how powerful your team is and how you want them to be buffed, you know, between the alliance points, those team-based bonuses that you're just mentioning, and everything else we've talked about. You know, just going back to how we started, this game is extremely deep. It had way more content and than we ever expected, and it's been a really good playthrough over these last couple of months already. And I don't think we're done with it yet. There's definitely going to be more Marvel Ultimate Alliance in the future to come. So, do you have anything else to throw in here?
No, wrapped it up there pretty nicely. I was thinking if the one biggest thing, the best part of this game as a Marvel fan is you can make a fantasy team. And that's just been super cool. So, Chris says we got a lot of time left to play in this game, a lot of leveling up to do. And for me, it's a lot of fantasy booking. How can I make my personal favorite group of 4 going into a team of Marvel superheroes? Pretty cool.
For sure. Yeah, even though it was overshadowed by other titles at its time of release, it has proven to be an incredibly fun co op experience that delivers in all the right ways. From its extensive roster to its deep list of content and strong replay factor, the game delivers on what Marvel Universe fans want: the ability to crush endless amounts of baddies with their own superhero dream team. We definitely recommend this game for anyone who has a Nintendo Switch, and if you've played it, be sure to let us know what your thoughts are and whether or not you agree with how much we've enjoyed it.
This is a GeeK KetchUP news breaking alert. The next era of the Great Console War has been underway for months now, but tensions escalated recently as both Sony and Microsoft released the complete specifications for each of their soon-to-be flagship game system.
The internet has seen increased activity as followers of both brands have been speculating over which next generation system will reign supreme.
Let's take a look at the full list of technical specs for the PS5 and Xbox Series X.
For the PS5, we've got a great list here. For the CPU, they're going with an 8X Zen 2 core at 3.5 gigahertz. For the GPU, they've got 10.28 teraflops, 36 CUs at 2.23 gigahertz. The GPU architecture is going to be custom RDNA 2. The memory and interface is a 16 gigabyte GDDR6 RAM at 256 bits. Memory bandwidth at 448 gigabytes a second. Internal storage, they're coming with 825 gigabyte solid state hard drive. The I/O throughput is going to be 5.5 gigabytes a second raw and 8 to 9 gigabytes per second in compressed. The expandable storage option is going to give you an NVMe solid state drive slot. You can also hook up external storage via USB 3. The optical drive is going to come with a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray. For backwards compatibility, for the PS5, it's only going to come with 100 select PS4 titles. And accessories, it is currently unknown if existing PS4 peripherals like headsets and controllers will be compatible with the PS5.
Next up, we'll take a look at the Xbox Series X. For CPU, we got an 8x core at 3.8 gigahertz custom Zen 2. For GPU, we got 12 teraflops, 52 CUs at 1.825 gigahertz. GPU architecture done with a custom RDNA 2. We've got a 16 gigabit GDDR6 RAM for memory with 10 gigabytes at 560 gigabytes per second memory bandwidth. An internal storage of 1 terabyte custom NVMe solid state drive. I/O throughput at 2.4 gigabytes per second raw, 4.8 gigabytes per second compressed. Expanded storage of 1 terabyte expansion solid state drive. External storage, USB 3 external hard disk drive support, optical drive, a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray, and we're looking at a performance target rate of 4K at 60 frames per second up to 100 frames per second. Backwards compatibility, what we're all interested in knowing about. It should use the full use of all games currently available on Xbox Live. And as accessories go, all existing peripheral compatibility will happen with the Xbox Series X.
As of now, these juggernauts of technology are set to release the consoles during the 2020 holiday season, and it is unknown whether or not the current COVID-19 pandemic will cause delays to this timeline.
Be sure to check back with GeeK KetchUp for the latest news from the world of gaming.
So given everything that is going on in the world with social distancing and shelter-in-place/quarantines, we have all found ourselves with a lot more time on our hands than normal. During this time, we're sure everyone has been finding new games, comics, books, TV shows, and activities just like we have, so we wanted to take a few minutes here to share what we've been doing to pass the time. So Kyle, what has been top of your list for passing the time during all this stay at home?
So we touched on it a little bit earlier. It's really what's been taking up all of my time since December, since Christmas, and that is my Nintendo Switch. You hinted on it, like I said, you hinted on it earlier. I've just been crushing everything Nintendo Switch because I didn't get one on release, and it's been out for a few years. So there's this massive back catalog that I need to play through.
Oh yeah.
So every chance I get, I'm on the Switch and utilizing it, almost to the point where my PlayStation is essentially for Netflix and Hulu, and that's it. And any video gaming I do on my Switch. So naturally, in the first half, we talked about playing a lot of Marvel Ultimate Alliance, The Black Order, but I've also been running through Breath of the Wild, which has been just an amazing experience, you know. And I know that I'm late to the game on this, and everyone's like, Kyle, this was game of the year, game of the decade. Everyone's known about Breath of the Wild, and I've known about Breath of the Wild, but I haven't been able to really like sink my teeth into it.
Sure.
So with a little more time at home, I've been just really getting down and dirty with it.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the plus to with video games is that it's very easy to go back at any time and you can still sit down and experience a game. So I was really happy that you got the chance to start playing Breath of the Wild cuz I was one of those people. I mean, I bought a Switch for Breath of the Wild on day 1, you know, just because of how good that game was going to be and how good it ended up being. But you're right, there's a huge back catalog on the Switch already from retro games to some of the new like, you know, Super Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild that they've put out. So it's definitely a good one that can fill up unlimited amounts
Yeah,
of
the
time.
highlight for me, as much as the top titles have been Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart 8, you know, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, it's been the indie games that have been the most fun. A lot of Stardew Valley and Golf Story. Those have been really cool.
But Tetris 99?
Tetris 99, I was going to say, and Tetris 99, which is a free game, and then you can pay $10 to get an expanded full version. But Tetris 99 has been a ton of fun. I already love Tetris, so playing it competitively in a battle royale situation has been a dream come true.
For sure. I find that the Switch has really become this perfect blend of old
Hmm.
and new. And Nintendo's kind of always done this. I mean, on the 3DSs and some of the other handhelds, you could get access to some of the retro catalog, and they've always had some strong indie games. But the Nintendo Switch, I feel like, really stepped it up. You know, it's got better capabilities, better graphics, the integration straight to the TV, so you can kind of get different play experiences. So I'm with you. It's pretty much been a benefit all
Yeah, since
around.
I got it, it's been, like I said, it's been nonstop since January, since right after Christmas when I got it. Anytime I need to game, I'm going right to the Switch, whether it's for a long gaming session or a short gaming session. There's enough variety there for me that it keeps me entertained, and the portability is really nice.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I'll kind of take a side turn here since you brought up video games right off the bat, and I've definitely been getting my fill of those during this time, and we'll touch on a few a little bit later. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that this past week that I spent a lot of time watching Tiger King.
That seems to be it's the memeable show right now.
Oh my God, it's a train wreck you can't look away from.
I haven't started it yet. I haven't started it yet, but I know everyone in our group chat has been really on it.
Yeah, it's I think 7 1-hour episodes, so it is a little bit of a commitment for a documentary. But once you start watching it, you can't turn away. You know, as everybody probably knows by now, it follows mostly the story of a guy named Joe Exotic out of Oklahoma, who was one of the largest, if not the largest, you know, breeders and owners of exotic animals, tigers,
Yeah.
lions, cheetahs, lynx, bears. I mean, oh my,
Yeah.
you know, they're all in there. But what was also interesting was that they actually got a lot of good interviews and footage from some of the other big exotic animal players, you know, and so right down the street from Charlotte here is Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I mean, I've seen the signs. I've never been, but I've always seen the signs for the big tiger experience that they have
Yeah.
down there. There's a big tourist place run by a guy named Doc Ansel, so they follow him a good bit in this, and you kind of see glimpses into his life. There's a lot of other controversy with a lady in Florida who probably killed her husband, even though it's never been proven, allegedly. But, you know, it just moves through, and from the moment it starts, you just can't look away. The level of character that Joe Exotic is, and then the mystery that's kind of going on, and the absurdity of how they live. It's got it all. Don't need to beat the dead horse a little bit here, but but it is really worth the watch if you have not seen. If you're one of the people like Kyle over here that has not yet watched Tiger King, do yourself a favor and go
And
get
it's only
that done.
7 episodes, at like an hour a clip,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah. So it's a little long, but
but
not
in
too bad.
binge watching sessions, that's nothing.
Yeah, you could definitely get through it. I think our friend Barry said he pretty much started it after a couple of days of people talking about it, me talking about it, all that stuff, and then that night he was like, "I finished
Yeah,
it." He pretty much just like could not stop watching it.
yeah,
So,
couldn't put it down.
so that's been one of the big things, at least for this past week for me. What else do you got on your list?
Well, I'll keep it in the realm of TV. One thing that we've been watching a lot, well, like it went away for a while and then it recently came back and it's on its third season. And I don't know if you even know about this show. It's called The Real Bros of Simi Valley.
No.
It's a Facebook watch show.
Oh, interesting.
And it's centered around it's a satire of reality television and shows like The Real Housewives and the Kardashians and things like that. And follows a group of friends from Simi Valley, California, and they're just bros. They're total bros. They drive big trucks. The main character Xander, which is spelled exactly the way it sounds. It's Xander. He is a mechanic, but his shop specializes on putting truck nuts on the back of trucks, which is like essentially
Oh, he's that
putting a
guy?
pair of
Yeah.
testicles on the back of. But that's like his whole business. That's all they do. And so, like I said, it's a satire. Like it's not a real it's
It's
scripted
scripted.
to make fun of
Okay.
reality television, but it's so
Okay.
funny. And it has a lot of like former Vine stars and YouTube stars that came together to make the show and to star in it. And it's just one of those things that if you grew up in the generation of the boom of the reality television show, like you got to watch this and just die laughing about it. Like it's just every single bit, every single scene just tops the next one and the absurdity. And then it's all done in this realm like it's a real reality TV show while poking fun at reality TV shows. It's highly recommend it. It'll give you some good laughs. In the most recent season, the one guy the one guy Bryce, who's a professional skateboarder, he breaks his legs and the doctors give him revolutionary medicine to fix his broken legs, and it's just CBD. And everybody
It's a miracle drug.
everybody
Everybody
calls
knows
it this experimental drug, and they're just kind of like, I don't know about that CBD stuff. And then he's like, oh no, I'm telling you, it's state of the art. This is straight Rivendell stuff, man. And then and the guy quits me. He goes, I don't know about that Rivendell stuff. I can't trust them after what they did to Arwen. And like,
Some deep.
you have to check it out. It's really really funny. I know shout out to Mike Fee. He's kind of like my girlfriend exposed me to the show. I could not stop laughing, and then I brought it up one day to him, and he's like, "No, I watched that show," and now we quote it back and forth. Wade doesn't burn, that sort of thing. Anyone that watches the show,
Apparently, y'all been holding
it's
out on me. This is the first
yeah,
I'm
it's
hearing
really
about
funny.
this
I have
show.
to send you the link so you can check it out. It's really really funny, and they come in at like 20 minutes per episode.
Okay.
And there's only like 9 episodes a season. Like I said, it's a Facebook only show. It's really, really funny.
I was gonna say, but you got to be on Facebook. Okay.
What have you
Okay.
been up to? Have you switching back to video games? You got any video games you've been crushing on?
Yeah. Well, a couple weeks back, kind of right before everything was getting more on the lockdown stage that we're at now, I started playing this game called Bless Unleashed. That was a brand new free-to-play MMO on Xbox, and really was enjoying it. Running around as a battle mage. The game itself has been running really well for being brand new. The servers have been strong, and it's a fully open world MMO. I mean, you're out there, and there are hundreds of people in your area running around doing their thing, and they just built it very well. I've really enjoyed it. It constantly has action. There's tons of missions to do, tons of open world boss encounters. So you may be running around and there's like normal baddies, that you would be taking out. Go kill 10 giant anacondas to skin them and bring them back. Those types of
Yeah.
things, of course. But then all of a sudden you'll just happen on this giant troll who's like, king of fire, and he can just wax anybody. So you got to get the community to come together, and like everybody will start showing up, and then all of a sudden you've got 20, 30 other fighters out there, and you're all taking them down. But that was really where I was expecting to spend a lot of my gaming time as the weeks were coming. But really, what ended up happening was Call of Duty released their new free to play battle royal in the Modern Warfare version called Warzone. And I had been avoiding Modern Warfare like the plague. I did not really want to pick that up. I was played Black Ops 4, kind of got to a point where I was a little done with Call of Duty games for a while. Some of the things they did over there just really turned me off. But I loved Blackout, which was the first Call of Duty Battle Royale mode. I love Battle Royals in general. And so when this came out, I picked it up, and it has been, for the most part, fantastic. A couple little bugs and things I'd like them to fix, but massive map on the scale that we've probably never seen before in a multiplayer game. The only thing I can kind of mentally compare it to is like the GTA 5 map or Red Dead Redemption. I mean, it is massive, and the whole thing renders no matter where you're at. So you're flying in, and you can see all the way across the world, and everything is in great detail. But 150 players
Wow.
go into this battle royal, and you can either go in as solos or teams of 3, and you're just going at it, attacking, trying to be that last guy standing. And it's really sucked me in. My old squad that I was playing Fortnite and Blackout on, they're all on this one, so we've been teaming up again. And they did some good changes compared to what Black Ops had. They simplified the loot system, made it a little bit more arcadey, so you don't have to spend so much time grabbing a million attachments and building a gun and getting a backpack. So far it's been pretty good. Last thing I'll say is they threw in this, they call it the gulag. So if you die, you go into like essentially a prison, and you have to fight. You get one extra chance to get yourself
Yeah.
brought back, and you fight one-on-one with another person that's died, and whoever loses
Yeah.
is out of the game. You're back to the lobby, and whoever wins gets to drop back in and continue fighting to win the game or rejoin their team. So they did some cool stuff there, and I wasn't expecting, really. It wasn't on my radar so much until the rumors started coming out that they were going to drop this Warzone mode, and it's really almost all I'm playing now, unfortunately, because Bless Unleashed is definitely getting backburnered.
Like you said, video games can be picked up and put down at any time, so Bless Unleashed isn't going anywhere for you.
It's true. It's true. I've been kind of looking for an MMO, and I've been logging in and kind of playing a little bit here and there in between. But my big sessions lately have been mostly the Call of Duty Warzone.
Yeah.
Anything else on your list that you've been filling the time with?
The last thing I've got here, and board games are just so popular in my house. We love to play big board games with 4 or 5 people, but then we look for board games that we can play with just myself and my girlfriend, because we live here, just 2 of us. And one that has dominated our household for a while, and I believe I've talked about it before but never gone too far in depth, is Villainous.
This is a cool game.
Yeah, when you came up a few months ago, I got a chance to show you and play it a little bit. It's based around classic Disney villains. So each player takes the role of a Disney villain. And the original set, the game has characters like Ursula and Jafar and Queen of Hearts, Maleficent, Captain Hook, and then of course my personal favorite, Prince John from Robin Hood. So each character plays on their own game board and has their own objective to winning. And the game itself is played in this blend where you're playing against yourself and your own game board, but you're also simultaneously playing against the other people playing on their games boards, and you can send you play fate against your other opponents, which then brings the heroes from that particular movie into their realm. And it's just been really smart, and there's a lot of like expansions that have come out that have kind of changed the rules and the objectives for each character around. So we've been playing a ton of Villainous. The most recent expansion came out back in early March. It was called Perfectly Wretched. It was the Corilla Deville expansion, so it brought Corilla Deville and Mother Gothel and Pete from the Steamboat Willie shorts all into the game with their own little game boards. And it's just been fun and complex, and none of the games take too long to play. They're around like anywhere from a half an hour to 90 minutes a piece. It really just depends on your familiarity with the game, on how quickly you can play it. But each one has its own unique twist. It's really cool, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, you introduced me to this game a couple months back, and I will say it was very unique.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure then, but there could be some other games out there like it. But as far as board games go, with that styling and rule set, it was unique to me, not something I had seen anywhere else. I still feel like I got robbed out of winning on my first time
Oh,
because I was kicking that ass with Jafar, but then Kyle comes in with the Queen of Hearts
Queen of
and
Hearts and took the shot and
took the shot and got it and
got
beat
the
me right
win.
before one move away, and it
One
would have
move
been
away.
mine.
Chris did lose on a technicality where he got his objective, but the way the rules are set in place, you get your objective, but you can't win until it goes around one more time. And then if you start your turn with your objective met, you win. So, and that's typically how the game has worked out every time. Like, you get right down to the wire where, okay, if the board can just get back around to me, I will win. But there's always somebody in your way.
We don't tend to play the board games in our household as much unless we've got folks over. We're doing game nights and card nights and stuff like that. But you all have been on the front lines of the board game world lately.
It's just something we've enjoyed. Like I said, I think board games are making a bit of a comeback, and the more complicated Ticket to Ride, Settlers of Catan, like those games are really coming back for people that want to stay at home and have a nice quiet night in and maybe have a few drinks and play a board game versus going out into the bar scene. I think I'm in my 30s at this point. I'm 34 years old, and I'm over the bar scene, but that doesn't mean I don't want to have fun on a Saturday night. So
It's true.
the board games has really made up for that.
But the last thing I had here to share, Kyle, just because it is on a little bit of a lighter note, and I think everybody could use some of that. Sarah Beth and I have been watching a show. It's been out for a number of years, and we were definitely late to the party here. But with everything going on, we were coming off of watching The Outsider, which was super dark and heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted something light and funny that we could just throw on easy. That perfect, the 20 to 30-minute comedy like The Office or the Parks and Rec, those types of things. And so what we found finally was Schitt's Creek
Okay.
on Netflix. It's Eugene Levy and his son Dan started, or I think they both, write and create this show, or like the showrunners for it. But it's essentially about a extremely wealthy family that was worth, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they were tycoons in essentially the rental video business.
Okay.
So they essentially ran like a Blockbuster called Rose Video,
Yeah.
and then the whole show kind of opens up with them being kicked out of their house because their business manager essentially stole all their money or like wasn't paying taxes on anything for years. So they get cleaned out. They go from being the 1% of the 1% level rich to absolutely broke.
Yeah.
And the only thing left in their name is this town that Eugene Levy bought for his son as a joke, because when you're super rich you can do this. But he bought the town called Schitt's Creek and gave it to his son. So that was the only thing the government didn't want back. 'Cause
Yeah.
it has zero value. It is down in the dumps, poor. So it just follows that group of people, right, going from ultra wealthy, ultra privileged, everything taken care of for them, to now they live in this rundown flea motel with a bunch of people who have never, even looked at that kind of money that these people had.
Yeah.
He walks around in these probably $10,000 suits that are more than every car in the town, things like that, and then they're adjusting. But all in all, it started off a little wonky, like most of those comedies. The very first few episodes are a little tough. They're feeling it out. They're getting used to the characters. But just like Parks and Rec and The Office and some of those, the more we started watching them, and you got kind of to the end of the first season, and they've done enough, and they developed the characters enough to go from like super awkward to meaningful and characters you care about. And it's been good. I think we're just starting season 4, so we've been kind of binging that, in the evenings. But just a good, lighthearted, kind of escape, makes you laugh. I think everybody needs a lot of laughs right now, and so that's been our way of doing that.
That's been a good one. That's kind of what we've been doing with Real Bros of Simi Valley. Everything is so high stress and tense right now that a good laugh, a good chuckle is something we could all use. So Chris and I have certainly tried to keep ourselves occupied with new games, shows, and hobbies from the world of geek culture during our social distancing time. But hit us up on social media to let us know what new nerd stuff you found yourself getting into.
Thank you for listening to Geek KetchUp. If you enjoyed today's chapter, please remember to subscribe to Geek KetchUp on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Check out Geek KetchUp on Facebook and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Geek KetchUp Pod for updates on new episodes every 2 weeks. You can find links to all these accounts in the show notes below or at our website, www.geekketchuppodcast.com. Stay saucy, you nerds.